to the New Orleans Humanist Perspective, presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Well, hello, and thanks again for watching our show. Today we're going to have a very interesting and perhaps intellectual discussion because our guest is David O'Donohue, who is here representing the New Orleans Lyceum. Tell us what the Lyceum is, and I also have the name here, Philo Cafe. Tell us what that is.
Okay. The New Orleans Lyceum is a independent, freestanding, grassroots educational organization in New Orleans. We do a number of different kinds of classes, activities around town. We don't have a site that we work from. We go to cafes and libraries, and we basically in donated space, and we conduct basically conversations with folks.
With a leader of some sort, because I get your email notices about events that are coming up, and generally, don't you have someone who can discuss a particular topic on a particular date? Is that
exactly? Yeah, and we call them facilitators because they can come with a passion for a subject and just engage with everyone as learners. We really believe that everyone has wisdom, and that a conversation can bring out, especially with older learners, that the life experience of people can bring out their own wisdom, and we don't need to be lectured at. We're not quite the lecture format. We're more, let's read a book together, let's discuss it, let's see a film, let's have a discussion about it. Some are a little more didactic than others, but some tend to be very, very open, and we try to stay on topic.
Now, is what you're describing now the Lyceum or the Philo Cafe, or are they interchangeable?
Well, the Philo Cafe, we call them Philo Cafe, and it's not Philo Do, it comes from the Philosophy Cafe. Is a offering of the Lyceum, and we have a number of other offerings, but the Philosophy Cafe I started here in 2003, and they became very successful. New Orleans is a very good place for philosophy discussions, and because we're a gregarious group, we like to talk, we like to drink coffee. We don't tend to meet in bars, although we could do it as easily over a glass of wine as a cup of Java. So and the philosophy cafes are one aspect, and then we have other things that we do as well.
All right, now you mentioned books. Do you sometimes request that people in advance read a book and then come to discuss it, or how do you use books?
Well, that's good, because I have in the past been more interested in having people read ahead of time, and people's schedules in elective education are very busy, and so they often are not able to read. So our format has been now kind of what we call slow reading, and that's where everyone brings the book, we read read sections of it together. We go around the room and read sections. That works very well for philosophy. We're doing a Spinoza group now, and Spinoza is very dense. And by going slowly, people are going, wow, I get this. I would not get this alone. You know, it's the input that other people give as they hear the passage. So we're all on the same page, and that works really well. It's slow, so you don't read the whole text. You just pick sections. But what people get from the sections is very valuable. We've done that with poetry too, and it's been very helpful.
Now, do you have generally a cadre of the same sort of people coming, or do you have different groups at different times?
Well, we do and we don't. We have a pretty, this isn't going to appeal to everyone, and so we have people that love this and say, I'm so glad you're here. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. I loved university. I'm out of university now, but it gives me a chance to get back into thinking about these things. But and we would like to be much more diverse. We'd like many more offerings. When I was here prior to Katrina, we had 12 people on the faculty, so they were teaching all over the city. It was much larger than it is post-Katrina, and I would very much like more instructors, more people or more facilitators, more people with passions to diversify our offerings, basically.
Now, when you just use the word faculty, tell me how that works within your organization.
Well, this is all voluntary teaching, so and we have no formal relationships in terms of contracts with anyone. People just approach me, or I approach them. If I meet someone who has a particularly interesting area that they're exploring or have a knowledge about, I'll say, have you ever thought about teaching that or just doing a group on that? And oftentimes people are very happy to say, you mean there might be people that are interested in this stuff? And I go, yeah, there would be. And I have a 700-person mailing list, and so I can usually gather a group of people together around particular interests that people have.
Give us some idea of what some of those interests have been, some of that for which you have held meetings. And
okay. Well, we've had a series on poets. We've had we've done William Blake. We've done T.S. Eliot, Yeats. The harder poets that are difficult. I have a real hard time understanding poetry. So for me it was a way of, I could get more understanding by working with a group. We also have a group, a series of philosophers. So we did Emerson, we were doing Spinoza, we did Plato. So that is an ongoing group. Those are folks that enjoy philosophy, and then when we're kind of finishing up with Spinoza, they now want to do Hume. So the group itself kind of decides, let's continue. Like they're a group that enjoy meeting, and they just, at the end of a section, they'll say, what's our next philosopher that we'll pick up? We also are doing a History of New Orleans book group right now that we're excited about, because there's so many wonderful books about New Orleans. Some are very clever books, and we're thinking about having speakers and going on field trips out of that. So these can be kind of foundations out of which we jump into other things.
And you have no trouble in finding venues for your events?
Not at this point.
For what sort of size audience do you have to prepare?
We usually have between 8 to 20, usually never more than 20. That's gets a little bit unwieldy in coffee houses and things. But so I would say normally 12 is a good number. But sometimes we have just as few as 4, but it can be just as powerful of a discussion.
Well, I appreciate that. So you just mentioned poetry and philosophers. Are there other general topics?
Films. We do a lot with films.
Tell us about that.
I did a New Orleans in film at the Inn on Bourbon. That's no longer going, but we were looking at films where New Orleans really played a key figure. Not just that it was a setting, but that New Orleans, being as rich as it is with its culture, it really sets a a tone for the film. So we did that at the Inn in Bourbon. We're currently doing a spirituality in film class, which is very, very ecumenical. Most of the people that come are not necessarily affiliated with any religious group, but we kind of critique what is this whole phenomenon of spirituality. And
I was certainly going to ask you that question, because you, bearing in mind who our organization is, a secular humanist group, there are a lot of, especially young people these days, when they're asked about their religion, they say, well, I don't follow a religion, but I am spiritual. What is that distinction?
Right. That's and by the way, the intro to your program, those principles are very much Lyceum principles. That's very much the way that we want to think about things. Is that I find that spirituality, in a general way, is a kind of a condition of many people's lives, and they often become rather unconscious to it when they join a religion, or they're part of a religion that they grow up with, and they mouth beliefs that they're not really critiquing very carefully. And so what I think that the attitude about spirituality is choose carefully. You know, be discerning about what you really believe, and then be congruent. Don't be mendacious, where you're kind of coming to church where you don't really believe what you're saying in the creeds. That's
what I'm trying, and I'm trying to establish in my own mind what it means to be spiritual but non-religious.
Yeah.
How is that evidenced in a person's mind or in a person's action to be spiritual, but without a supernatural being?
Right.
Describe that to me.
I think it's being able to live with the mystery.
With a mystery.
Just living the idea that the absolute, that reality is not going to ever be understood fully by us, and that there are always going to be factors that are going to require us to kind of give over to a greater something, and that could be spirit, it could be compassion, it could be love, it could be just mystery in a kind of an existential way. Just saying, see, I think many of the existentialists were actually quite spiritual in a way, that their notion was human beings have limited capacities for reason. As much as I love reason, I'm totally into reason, but I think it has its limitations.
I'm not sure that I agree with that, but I can appreciate that is the position that a lot of people take, and I do find it curious that it is largely among the young people today who are taking that position, that they are spiritual, but I think that I believe they are eliminating the possibility of a supernatural being, or at least one that can be contacted. And so, and a lot of people who will go to church and say, I have a religion, they may be spiritual, but they don't buy the whole story.
Yeah.
A lot of that is purely social. You know, it's a good reason to go to church for your family and friends and business contacts and whatever. But in our organization, we have people who cut the ties, and they said, our people say, we no longer can accept those religious concepts. We are non-religious. We are not necessarily anti-religious, although we are opposed to a lot of what religious leaders are doing. And we're greatly concerned with the way the zealot Christians have taken over our government. It's alarming what's happening to the First Amendment and the separation of religion and government. Now,
let me add just a piece on that, because this is where philosophy plays a role for me, is that for me, what philosophy has done, especially the work of Hegel, the work of Spinoza, some of the people that have a kind of a idea of the absolute or the unity of reality, that there is a kind of a unity of it all. It's not, we're not just kind of thrown in some kind of mess out there, but there's a cosmos, there's an organizing principle. That, to me, was much more compelling than the stories that religion played. And I am a believer that we need to get away from the mythology of stories, like that they are teaching us truths, and that there are, you know, the Greeks were very, the Greek philosophers moved out of the Greek religion because they thought that the Greek religion is not going to capture the nature of metaphysics, that you need to really use your head around creating, you know, some form of understanding of how all of this stuff relates. And so to me that's spiritual, you know, okay, and it could be very scientific.
But what you described sounded a great deal to me like the field of physics. And now they're talking about quantum theories, which goes beyond my capacity, but they know what they're talking about.
Well, they don't always. See, well, they also live with the mystery. There are, I think, are great teachers in terms of them saying, wow, this is much more complicated than we had thought.
That is true, but as time goes along and it's rapidly accelerating, they are learning more and more about how the world, how the universes operate, and every step that they take makes it less necessary to have a creator. Mm-hmm. So anyway, now I understand that you've got something planned at Loyola University. Tell me what's coming up.
This is another adjunct to the Lyceum. We're being a partner in a project to develop a senior people over 50 education program for the city of New Orleans, which we're going to call Chautauqua, because that is actually, the Chautauqua was another wonderful educational movement that developed in this country, and we wanted to kind of honor that.
But now these were people who would travel from town to town. The Chautauqua, is that my recollection?
Yes. A little background on the Chautauqua. It was established in New York, in western New York, on a lake in 1874, I think. And so people went to this place during the summer. Beautiful setting. The kids would be able to play. The adults took classes, and it was a wonderful way to spend your holiday. You got to kind of get some enrichment, but also be in a very natural setting, get away from the grind, you know, all of that. Then the Chautauquas went out into the circuits. So they went to small towns in the Midwest. My great aunt was a Chautauqua player, so they did theater, they did music. So small rural towns for a week got enriched by all these people coming into town, and they were given this.
And you want to do something at Loyola, which would be a class?
A program where we'd have terms, a fall term and a spring term, and we're looking at starting in the fall of this year coming up, and we would have, we build on that. We'd have classes, we'd have presentations over a 6-week period, over a limited amount of time, open to the city of New Orleans, and then people over 50, and then we'd have 2 terms.
And would there be a tuition?
There would be a membership, a very inexpensive membership. We're thinking along the lines of about $40 membership for the year, and then a $25 fee for the classes, which should be very affordable for people.
What will take place in those classes?
People will meet once a week, and we may be located on the Loyola campus. Initially, we will be. We're thinking that we'll ultimately need to find space that will be dedicated to this, and people will come to classes perhaps during the day, perhaps in the evening. We haven't worked out the details on that.
Well, if you're talking about the older people, they may be retired and have time during the day.
Yes,
on the other hand, a lot of working people can't make it during the daytime.
Right, and they're working longer into their lives, so they'd rather do weekends.
Now, there was a program called the People's Program that a group of nuns.
Yes, Sisters of St. Joseph.
And I attended there, and I learned how to play bridge or whatever. That is that now gone?
No, it's still going up there on the lake, and I haven't been up there. I feel like our program will be more. They're more around activities and arts and things. I think they're doing some great work up there. We would be more academic. We'd be looking at getting emeritus professors from Tulane, Loyola, teaching more, intellectually stimulating classes.
You're talking about the kind of people who presently participate in the Lyceum.
Right.
And you feel that there is a considerable potential audience there?
I think so. I know that they have the LSU program in Baton Rouge called the Osher Lifelong Learning Program is doing very, very well. And they just build, and I've talked to programs all over the country where now with our we have a population that is getting older. We have the boomers. This is a group of people that want to keep active. And so I want to help with that.
And we just keep on living.
Yeah, and then yes. And our brains, I also look at this as kind of a brain gym, that what they've found in studies about Alzheimer's, about the prevention of Alzheimer's is keep your brain busy, learn new things, keep active.
Well, and someone told me recently that just walking, regular walking exercise does more for to prevent Alzheimer's and for your brain. And I said, you mean when I'm working crossword puzzles and that isn't doing me any good? They said walking. But
that's interesting.
But I still support your concept that if you use it or lose it, you use your mind, or it could go. Well,
you develop new tracks. What Oliver Sacks, who was a neuroscientist, said is that we need to always develop new tracks. We get routine, we get in the same track, but if we can do other things, learn new skills, pick up a language, that could be great.
It could utilize a part of your gray matter that is not being used.
Right.
And as I understand it, we are actually utilizing only a fraction of our capacity.
Right.
You want to dig into some of that unused area.
That's right.
All right. Well, what else? We have a few minutes to go. What else would you like our audience to know about either the Lyceum or your class at Loyola or you personally?
Well, I'd like to just mention a little bit about the legacy of the Lyceum, because I think it's a very interesting legacy in our history. There was a Lyceum movement in the 1830s, and that was a movement where New England communities established these schools on their own in order to increase the knowledge base of people during the Industrial Revolution. So basically it was a very practical kind of thing. And that movement was the ground for the Transcendentalists, Thoreau and Emerson. Emerson actually made his living on the Lyceum circuit. So he was able to go around, do these lectures, and especially in Massachusetts, it created a very interesting academic fervor among lay people, and that's what my dream is.
And that was the inspiration for your New Orleans Lyceum.
That's right.
Now, did you have a website or something that you wanted the people to see?
Yes.
Well, we could ask our cameraman if he could show that. And is it a website? Is that what it is?
No, it's actually a place that is an email address where if you will write to that email,
which says on the screen NewOrleansLyceum2.com. Is that what you?
NewOrleansLyceum2.com. If you write to that and ask to subscribe, you'll get weekly announcements about what we're doing in the city, and that way, that's our main way of getting the word out. We don't have brochures, we don't send out things, but if you write that email, ask me to put you on the subscription, you'll get something every week.
I see. By email?
By email, yes.
I see. Now, some of these people in the age group you're talking about for Loyola haven't gone into computers and the internet and are afraid of it.
Yeah.
So you will not necessarily be able to get to those people except what, word of mouth?
No. In terms of the Chautauqua program, we're thinking of lots of different means of communication. So when you're correct that there are folks that are not on internet. Even, you know, we've got to remember that. So we will have printed material, and we'll have telephone numbers and things. We're having 3 information teas during the summer, and those will be so those are public announcements, public meetings for people to learn about this program.
Which will begin in the fall.
Which will begin in the fall.
All right. Well, we still have, you know, like a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of turning things over to you to tell the folks whatever you think might be of interest to them.
Well, I would encourage you, if you know any of you out there have an interest in offering something that you'd like to gather a group with. I know there's Meetup out there, and that's okay. I think that's a very interesting thing where people get on Meetup and they are able to gather a group. But if any of you want to offer something, write me at this address, and we can try to set something up. I'm really trying to get more participation.
I see. Now, the people you call your faculty doesn't mean that they necessarily have to have a PhD.
No.
Do they? And they don't necessarily have to be present or past college professors.
No.
If they just have an interest in a particular subject, an interest and a knowledge in a particular subject, and would like to share that with others. That's the requirement.
That is the basic requirement. Some kind of passion for something. They can come and say, I want to learn together with y'all, or they can say, you know, I have a background in this. Let me share what I know and hear from you what you think. You know.
Have you to date had people conducting sessions regarding atheism or secular humanism?
Be great. Great if people from your organization. You have such a wonderful. I'm on your list with all, and it's incredible conversations that you all are having. And I'm thinking these are great people. You know, these are intelligent people that think through things. So any of you guys wanted to do something like that, have a theme, have a group that really looked at atheism as a way of life. You know, that would be great.
And since you mentioned our internet discussion group,
yes,
we also have a website, which is nosha, NOSHA.org, O-R-G. You go to that website and you can find out everything you want to know about our organization. You can click on media, and it will give you a menu of these shows that we produce, and then you can watch past shows. And there's a lot of interesting information on our website. So the folks now have 2 places to go: yours and ours.
I feel like we're kindred organizations in many ways. I feel like we're doing a lot of the same things.
I think that our primary similarity is that we have open minds. You know, our minds are not closed to, in our group, we're not closed to anything. We have concluded that some things are worthless, but we consider them. And I presume that your folks are there to let some new concepts in, and then are willing to consider them, if not adopt them, right? All right, well, we thank you very much, David, for being here today. We thank you, folks, for watching our show, and join us again next week.